Of all the questions we have ever asked, this may be the deepest. How did life begin? How did lifeless matter, mere chemistry, ever become alive? Every creature that has ever lived, from the smallest microbe to the largest whale, is part of a single unbroken chain stretching back nearly 4 billion years. And at the start of that chain is a moment we still do not fully understand, the moment chemistry crossed a line and became biology. This is the story of that moment, and of the 2 billion years of microscopic life that followed, on a young and lonely planet. 4 billion years ago, Earth was a lifeless world of rock, water, and sky. There were no plants, no animals, not a single living thing anywhere on the planet. But it was far from empty. Its oceans and air were a vast churning laboratory, crackling with energy and dissolved with simple chemistry. Lightning split the skies. Ultraviolet sunlight poured down through the hazy air. Heat and minerals bled from volcanoes and vents across the seafloor. All that raw energy drove reactions between water, carbon dioxide, nitrogen, and other simple molecules, building compounds more and more complex. In the 1950s, scientists tried to recreate this young Earth in a jar, mixing simple gases and water, then adding sparks of electricity to mimic lightning. Within days, something remarkable appeared: amino acids, the very building blocks of proteins, forming on their own from nothing but simple chemistry and energy. It was a stunning clue. The molecules of life were not impossibly rare. Given the right ingredients and a spark of energy, they seemed almost eager to form. From this raw chemistry came the true building blocks of life, amino acids that link into proteins, sugars, fats, and the bases that spell out the genetic code. These are the same components found in every living cell today. On the early Earth, they were accumulating in the seas, waiting for a way to come together. The oceans were slowly becoming a thin broth of life's ingredients, a primordial soup, rich with possibility but not yet alive. And Earth was not building these molecules alone. Space itself was delivering them. Comets and meteorites rained down, some already carrying complex organic compounds. We have found amino acids inside meteorites that fell from the sky, proof that the chemistry of life is scattered across the cosmos, not unique to Earth. From below in the vents, from above in the storms, and from beyond in the falling ice, the young Earth was gathering the ingredients of life from every direction. But where did the scattered pieces finally come together into something living? One powerful answer lies deep on the ocean floor, in total darkness. There, hydrothermal vents pour out hot, mineral-rich water, towering chimneys of rock, warm and endlessly energetic, on an otherwise frozen seabed. These vents offered everything life's first chemistry needed: a constant source of energy, protective shelter, and tiny rocky pores that could trap and concentrate molecules. In these dark, warm cradles, simple chemistry could grow crowded and complex, perhaps the very birthplace of the first living systems. Others imagine a different cradle, warm little ponds on volcanic land, exactly as Charles Darwin once dreamed more than a century ago. As such pools dried under the sun and refilled with rain, they would concentrate their molecules again and again, forcing them to link into longer chains. Vent or pond, the principle was the same: a place where life's ingredients could gather, concentrate, and begin to organize themselves into something more. Now came the single most important breakthrough in the history of life. A molecule appeared that could do something no chemistry had done before: copy itself. The best candidate is RNA, a close cousin of DNA. And RNA has a magical double talent: it can store genetic information, and it can act as a tool that drives reactions. In this ancient RNA world, molecules that copied themselves fastest and most accurately made more of themselves, crowding out the rest. This was the dawn of evolution, before there were even cells. Naked molecules were already reproducing, mutating, competing, and being selected for survival. But a naked replicating molecule is fragile and exposed. The next great step was to build a wall, a boundary between the living chemistry and the world outside. The answer came from fats. In water, certain fatty molecules spontaneously arrange themselves into tiny hollow bubbles, sealing off a droplet of liquid inside. Now there was an inside and an outside. These protocells could hold their replicating molecules together, manage their own chemistry, and even grow and split in two. A membrane, a set of genes, and a metabolism, all in one tiny package. This was no longer just chemistry. This was, at last, a living cell. Somewhere in that ancient world lived a single population of cells that would become the ancestor of everything. We call it LUCA, the last universal common ancestor. Every living thing alive today descends from LUCA. Every bacterium, every mushroom, every towering redwood, every dinosaur that ever roared, and every human being. LUCA already used DNA, built proteins, and ran on the same molecular code that all life still shares today, the reason your genes and a bacterium speak the same language. From this one humble microbe, the entire tree of life would grow and branch across 4 billion years, filling the whole planet. From LUCA, life split into two great branches of microbes, the bacteria and the archaea, tough survivors that still thrive in the harshest places on Earth. They spread everywhere, into boiling springs, freezing ice, acid pools, and the deepest rock. Wherever there was energy, life found a way to take hold. Invisible and countless, these microbes became the first true inhabitants of the planet, and they would rule it, alone, for an almost unimaginable span of time. For the next 2 billion years, life stayed microscopic. There were no plants, no animals, only single cells, ruling a silent world of rock and sea. It is a humbling thought. For most of the history of life on Earth, the grandest living thing was a bacterium too small to see. Yet these microbes were not idle. Everywhere they gathered in vast mats and colonies, quietly transforming the chemistry of the oceans and the air. In warm, shallow seas, microbes built the first great structures on Earth, stromatolites, layered mounds of rock, grown one thin sheet at a time. Each layer was a living carpet of microbes that trapped sediment, then grew on top, stacking upward over centuries into domes and columns of stone. These are among the oldest fossils we have ever found, silent monuments, proving that life was already thriving more than 3 billion years ago. Then, one kind of microbe invented something that would change the world forever: photosynthesis. Using only sunlight, water, and air, it made its own food. These cyanobacteria flooded the seas, harvesting sunlight by the trillions. And as a waste product, they released a strange and powerful gas, oxygen. For hundreds of millions of years, that oxygen poured out, until it saturated the oceans and began to fill the sky. Slowly, the very air of the planet was changing. But oxygen was a poison. To the microbes that had ruled for 1 billion years, this rising gas was toxic and deadly, and it triggered a mass extinction. Countless species were wiped out or driven into the few dark corners where oxygen could not reach, a catastrophe caused by life itself. The oxygen rusted the iron in the seas, staining the rocks red in great banded layers we still dig up today. Life had accidentally remade its own planet. Yet from that catastrophe came opportunity. Oxygen is packed with energy, and the survivors that learned to use it could power a richer, more active kind of life. The sky turned blue. High above, some oxygen formed a shield of ozone, blocking the sun's harshest rays and one day making it safe for life to crawl onto land. The world was transformed brighter, bluer, and charged with energy. The stage was being set for something far more complex than a single simple cell. Around 2 billion years ago came another fateful moment. One microbe swallowed another, but instead of digesting its prey, the two struck a bargain. The swallowed cell stayed alive inside its host, using oxygen to produce energy. In return, it gained shelter. Together, they became something entirely new. That captured guest became the mitochondria, the power plants that still burn inside every complex cell today, including every cell in your own body. This union created a bigger, more powerful kind of cell, one with room to grow, specialize, and cooperate. Life had crossed its final great threshold. But pause on a strange question. What actually separates the living from the non-living? A rock and a bacterium are both made of atoms, yet one is alive, and one is not. Life has a few signatures. It takes in energy to keep itself going, it responds to its world, it reproduces, and above all it evolves, changing across generations. Somewhere on the young Earth, chemistry quietly checked every one of those boxes for the first time. And once it did, there was no turning back. How can we possibly know what happened 4 billion years ago? The answer, again, is written in stone and in the atoms locked inside it. Radioactive elements decay at steady, clock-like rates, letting us date ancient rocks with remarkable precision. And life leaves fingerprints, subtle chemical signatures only living things produce. In the oldest rocks on Earth, we find those fingerprints and faint traces of cells. The evidence is delicate, hard-won, and endlessly debated, but it points to life almost as old as the oceans themselves. Early life was tough beyond imagining. Its descendants still cling on today in places that would kill almost anything else. We call them extremophiles. They thrive in boiling acid springs, in near-freezing brine, in crushing deep-sea trenches, and miles down inside solid rock, feeding on chemistry alone. These survivors hint that life can take hold in far harsher worlds than ours, and they are a key reason we now search for it on other planets and moons. Life's journey was not a smooth climb. More than once, the entire planet froze over in a deep catastrophe we call Snowball Earth. Ice spread from the poles until it wrapped the whole globe, pole to pole, for millions of years. Oceans sealed beneath frozen crusts, and the world went white. Yet life endured, clinging on around warm volcanic vents and thin cracks in the ice. Each time the planet thawed, life came roaring back, tougher than before. These frozen trials may even have driven life to become more complex, forging the survivors that would inherit the world. From these complex cells would eventually come everything we recognize as alive: seaweeds and forests, insects and fish, dinosaurs and mammals, and us. It had taken billions of years of chemistry, catastrophe, and quiet invention to reach this point, from a lifeless sea to a cell that could build a body. life was no longer just surviving. It was ready to become complex, to grow large, and to fill the oceans with wonders. The long age of microbes was ending. And the next chapter, the explosion of complex life, was about to begin.